Hello crafters, my name is Simone and I'm from Blonde Cards and Crafts. Today I'm going to make 3 cards with you here on the Love from Lizzie YouTube channel. We're going to use the August 2024 card kit. It's called To the Beach and we're going to make 3 A2 size cards. So I'm going to clear all this away and I'm going to start with card number 1. So for card 1, we're going to make an A2 size card, and for that you'll need a card base, and it'll need to measure 8.5 by 5.5, and we're going to score it at 4.25. Onto this, I'm going to do some ink blending, and I'm going to use some distress oxides. Now, I have been inspired by this pattern paper, so I've taken some antique linen and some salty ocean. I want to do some sandy beach down here and some sky up at the top, and that's because I want to use this piece of ephemera. So you can see here we have our sand at the bottom and we have our blue sky on top, and I'm going to put that in the middle. So what I'll do is some ink blending down around here on this bottom third of the card, and then I'll do some ink blending around the top in the salty ocean. And I'm not going to do a real strong blend. I'm going to do a loose blend so it looks like clouds in the background, similar to what you can see here on the back of this. I've also got 2 little deck chairs. Now what I want to do is I want to pop this down on my card, but my deck chairs are going to be hidden behind it. And I'm going to make a really simple mechanism with you. It's so easy, guys. Wait till you see it. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull on a little tab at the sides, and it's going to have our deck chairs are going to pop out. Now the deck chairs are going to sit on some acetate, and I have 2 pieces here. So what will happen is the acetate will have a little deck chair on it like that. It'll be behind our lovely little beach sheds, and when you pull out, our deck chair is going to pull out like that from behind. I think that will be super cool. So we'll have a blue deck chair is going to pop out on the right, and on the left hand side we'll have a red deck chair which will pop out. So they'll just slide out from behind those lovely little sea sheds or beach huts, whichever you like to call them. Now the mechanism piece is this, and it is literally a piece of cardstock which measures 2 1/8 by 1 3/4. And the reason I have cut it this size is because it needs to sit behind our beach hut and be hidden. This is what our acetate is going to be attached to. Now I've cut these really long. They're 1 1/4 in width, but you can have, I have a nice long length. I think these are about 4 inches long, because what I'll do is I'll attach them on here and then I'll cut them to length. So that's the plan with the acetate. So now I'm going to show you how I do the mechanism, and then we'll do some ink blending. So I'm going to move all this out of the way. I'm going to bring in my little trimmer. That's all you need. So on all 4 sides, I'm going to score my cardstock at 1/4 inch. Now on this trimmer, I've got a scoring blade, so it makes it really handy. And like I said, this piece is 2 1/8 along here, so I can pop it down there at the 1/4 inch. I'm going to do a little score line, and then I'm just going to rotate it to 1/4 inch all the way round and score that. Now, although I'm using a trimmer that has a scoring blade on it, you can use your regular scoreboard to do that. I'm marking out where I want to cut. I want these 2 side pieces cut away. So I'm going to trim them out using my scissors. And then we're going to put some plastic wrap. Now I found a sandwich bag worked really well. So I'm measuring the width there, and I'm going to cut my sandwich bag to this just under the same width, literally a 1/16 smaller, because I want to make sure that my plastic is going to slide around there. So I'm going to wrap it around and then cut it so it's a little bit longer. I'm going to take some double-sided tape. Now this is red liner tape from Love from Lizzie, and it's 1/8 wide. And I've put that down on the plastic right at the edge, and I'm going to take off the release paper from the top of that. And I have it folded over there. You can see that the plastic slides along there lovely. So I want to add my acetate in there now, and I'm going to put another bit of red liner tape onto the edge of that. So the red liner tape is adhered to the plastic right over there on the left edge, and I'm going to sit my acetate down against that edge. You can see when I pull on the acetate as well, the plastic slides over and back. So I'm just going to repeat now on the other side with my acetate and my red liner tape, so the two are on my mechanism. So once I have the release paper taken off there, I can then add down my piece of acetate right up against that left side edge. And there you go. When we pull the two together, they slide over and back because of the plastic wrap. Now I have some very slim foam tape, and I have doubled it up, and I've cut it so it's just under 1/4 of an inch wide. I'm going to put my doubled up foam tape on the top and bottom, and I'm going to put it on the front and the back. So in total I have 4 layers, but if you have regular foam tape, you can just use that. I use double layers because my foam tape is thin. So now I've got my distress oxides and I've got my card base, and I'm going to do a little bit of ink blending. I'm putting some of my antique linen down along the bottom, and that's going to represent the sand. And then I'm going to take the salty ocean, and I'm going to blend that from the top down, so the two kind of meet in the middle. I'm not being precious about how this goes down. It doesn't need to be, because sand isn't smooth, you know, there's texture. So I've taken my little piece of ephemera, and I'm just gauging how far up I want the sand to be on the card base. Now the color isn't exact to the piece on the ephemera, but that doesn't matter. You could add more distress oxide colors to give you more of a sandy look, but I'm just going with those 2 colors, and I think that'll look perfect. It'll look grand, and that's all we want. So I'm speeding things up here. I'm adding my salty ocean to the top. I've grabbed a little piece of tissue so that I won't leave fingerprints, and I'm just having a look at my ephemera piece. I'm going to use what ink is on the brush and add that to the top of the ephemera, and it'll pull in the 2 colors. So my background is blended here on my card base, and I'm having a look at where my mechanism piece is going to sit. And you can see that the acetate is larger. You know, when you pull that out, extend it out, you can see it off the card base. So I'm having a look at where my deck chairs will be, and then I'm going to pop my little piece of ephemera over. Now you can see the deck chairs, and we want them hidden. So I've decided I'm going to pull in the Love from Lizzie Lable dies, and I have taken the 4th one from the outside, and I've die cut out a piece in white cardstock. I'm going to do some ink blending and blend that into the background, but you can see there when our deck chairs are on the mechanism and the mechanism is closed that you can't see the deck chairs. Now you can see the one on the right there a little because it's just set down into place. It's not stuck down, but when it's stuck down you won't see it. So I think this will look better. You can just cut out a rectangular shape. You can die cut out whatever you have in your stash, but I thought the labels looked great because of that round edging. So here I'm blending down using the inks on my lovely little label piece, and I'm using the antique linen and the salty ocean for that. So now I did put a bit of water into my hands off camera and splattered both the card base and my label, and mopped up then that water, so it gives this lovely speckled background, this effect to our pieces. So I have the acetate on the mechanism pushed into the closed position, and I'm looking at my placing now where I want to put it, and I'm kind of happy with that there. So I'm going to take off the release paper from the back of the foam tapes, and I'm going to sit that down nicely into place. Then again, I'm just checking with the Lable dies to make sure it's straight. It is a little bit crooked, but it's fine, it's grand. So again, I have my acetate in the closed position, they're pushed in. And I'm looking at where I want to sit my little deck chairs. I'm going to use some release, some red liner tape on the back of those, because really it's best to use a tape rather than liquid glue. Now I'm just looking at where my Lable piece is going to go, and I've decided that with the acetate you can't actually see it to pull it, so I've punched out a 1-inch circle and I've cut it in half, and I'm going to use them on the edges so the recipient knows to pull. I want to add a little bit of foam tape so that when this piece sits on top there is some support. Now don't forget to put the same thickness of foam tape here as what you have on your Mechanism, so that it is nice and level for this piece that you're going to sit down. So I'm just taking it off. You can see there I've only got the doubled up foam tape, and I really should have put my 4 layers there, but I'll go back and I'll fix that later and you won't notice. So do as I say, not as I do. So now I'm going to pop that down, and I'm making sure it's centered and that I can't see my 2 little deck chairs behind there. And you can see here, look, I've remedied it. I've got the same level of foam tape. And look at our little deck chairs popping out from behind there. It looks fab. So now I'm going to trim down my acetate pieces. This is why I gave you that longer length. You can trim them down to size. And I'm going to put my little half circles that I punched out, I'll stick them down using some of the red liner tape. I've taken a black fine liner pen and I've drawn in some arrow shapes so people will know to pull. You can write pull, or if you have a little stamp you can use that. I'm going to put a sentiment on this, and it's the "See you soon." Now I cut my stamps apart. I didn't stamp this before I put on my Mechanism and everything, so I'm living dangerously here. I'm going to stamp this down. I'm using some VersaFine Onyx black ink, and it's a good juicy ink, so it should go down nicely. But I will have said to you before I got to this point, don't forget to stamp your sentiment before you attach the Mechanism. So I'm generally very lucky, and because it's an easy enough sentiment, if it doesn't stamp perfectly, I can always go back in with my black fine liner pen and I can just kind of fill in wherever needs to be filled in. But this does go relatively well, so I'm quite happy with that. There we go, see you soon. And that printed pretty well considering I was using a stamping block for those. So now the "see you," I'm going to put a couple of little dots. And then the "soon." And I'm going to put one of the little hearts that we got in our kit, the little peel-offs. So I'm going to take a little medium size, and I like to curve mine over, and it helps me get them off. So I'm going to pop one there, and then I'm going to pop some little ones. I don't know where that little one went, but it flew. I'll add a couple more, so we'll have 3 little heart peel-offs there for a finish. And doesn't that look lovely? I'm delighted with that. So there we go. We have our lovely A2 size card. We've room inside for a sentiment, and I'll pop that in there later. We've got our little Mechanism here, which slides out to share our little deck chairs there at the side. And that slides in lovely and back out nicely as well. So see you soon. I just think that's so cute. And all we've used is some ephemera, some of the stamps, and some of the lovely blueberry blue peel-offs there that came in the kit. So that's it for card 1. Let's go ahead now and do card number 2. So we're moving on to card 2, and I have everything we're going to need here. The first thing I have is a card base. Now my card base, it measures 8.5 by 5.5, and I've scored it at 2 1/8 and at 4 1/4. Now you might faintly see a score line here. I did that in error, so don't mind that. So we've two score lines, 2 1/8 and 4 1/4, and we're going to fold this one so it's a mountain fold, and this one is a valley fold in here, and that is going to give us the basis of an easel card. This is how an easel card sits, and we're going to add onto this. So onto this I'm going to add a piece of white cardstock, and this piece measures 5.5 by 4 1/4. I'm going to sit that on there, and I'm only going to attach it onto this panel here. So I'll add adhesive here, I'll pop that on, and I'll line it up at the sides and the bottom, and I'll glue that in place like that. Now on the back I want to add a piece. It'll cover my score line that I did in error, and I'm going to add this piece of pattern paper here. Now this one measures 5 1/4 by 1 7/8, and it'll sit there nicely. You don't need to add this if you don't want to, but I generally do add a piece here because I think it just finishes that off, you know, because I kind of consider that the front. Okay, so then onto this I have a piece of cardstock. Now this piece measures 5 1/4 by 4 inches, and it's going to sit on top like so. So onto this I want to use the same mechanism we used in card 1, and I have everything for that here. So this piece I've cut to 2.5 by 1 3/4. I hope you can see that there. I've scored it at 1/4 inch all the way around on the 4 sides, and then I'm going to cut away here on the right and on the left, and I'm going to cut between the score lines here. So just this part that I have marked out there. We'll then take our plastic wrap like we did the last time. Now my plastic wrap, the piece needs to be about 1 1/4, no bigger than that. I cut mine just a little bit shorter than that, about 1 1/8 is what I cut mine, and I wrapped it around and stuck it down like I did in card 1. So I have that here for you to see. So you can see there our plastic piece is on there like so. I took a piece of acetate. Now my acetate measures 3 1/2, and again this is 1 1/8 in width. I took a piece of double-sided tape, put that onto it, and stuck it onto my plastic wrap there on the left so it slides nicely up and down. I've also taken some foam tape. I've doubled it up so I have 2 layers on the back. Now you could get away with 1 layer, to be honest, but I've put 2 layers on, and then on the top here I've again put 2 layers, so we have 4 layers of foam tape. But this foam tape is very slim, and hence the reason I'm using that. So if you have a thicker foam tape, then 1 layer on each side will be fine, and I've done that at the top, front and back, and at the bottom, front and back. I've stamped out Good Times tan lines, and I fussy cut around that, and I set that down here on my piece of acetate, and it's just stuck on to my acetate, and you can see there I used double-sided tape for that. I've then cut 2 little strips. They're 1/4 inch wide. I've put 1 on the front and 1 on the back, and again using double-sided tape I've stuck them on, and I just took my black fine liner pen and I wrote pull on that. So this is our mechanism piece that we have here. Onto that I'm going to stick down this arch, and when we pull up on this we have our little sentiment will pop up. So for my arch, I have used Lizzie's new to the website, her nesting arch dies. Now I've used the second one from the center, or it's I think the 5th one from the outside, depending on which way you want to go. But that's the die that I've used to die cut out this little piece here. Now, if you don't have these dies and you just want to use what's in your stash, then you can cut a piece out that measures 2 inches wide by about 3 1/4 in height, and that should give you the same. You'll have a rectangular piece there, and you can pull out your sentiment from that. Okay, onto this I have die cut out. Now I've used the die that came in the kit, and I have die cut this out twice in the pattern paper. This one, it looks like waves that came in the kit, and I've also die cut it out 4 times in white cardstock. I've layered my white layers all together and one of my pattern paper, and it gives me this nice thick piece. This is going to be the stopper for our easel card. This piece I'm going to add, this is just the pattern paper. I'm going to glue that down there on our pattern paper piece, so it looks like the waves are coming up the beach. So then we'll have our mechanism on here like so. And then I've taken some of the pieces. Now I've picked out 2 lovely little lash girls. You can pick out whichever 2 you want there. I've taken one of the lighthouses. I'm going to stick that down in the middle. Now I've put a single piece of foam tape on the back of this. Again, you don't need to if you don't want to, but I liked the idea of raising that up. I'm going to tuck my little lash girl here underneath with her hand above, and this little one down here. For inside our card, this will be our stopper to the easel. I've taken 2 little ephemera fish, and I'm going to have them as if they're, you know, swimming as a school of fish. Does it is more than 2? Like, is 2 a school of fish, or does it have to be 3 or more? Anyway, I've got my 2 little fish. I'm going to stick them down. I've also got the blueberry blue love heart, lovely little peel-offs that we got. Struggled. Peel-offs that we got in the kit, and I'm going to use them. So you can use any of the ephemera that you have in the kit. I'm just going with this. So I'm going to assemble all this now with you, and what I'll do is put a little bit of music on in the background, and we'll do assembly, and I'll catch up to you then when we have our card made. I'm going to add my mechanism piece. I'll take the release papers off the back foams and add a little liquid glue. I'll put that down in place, and then I'll take the release paper off the front foams, add again a little liquid glue, and then put my lovely little arch panel on top. So there we go. There is our cute little lash girls, and I think they're having a fun day at the beach visiting the lighthouse, and the sea is just, the waves are rolling up onto the beach. I think this is lovely. When you pull out, we have our sentiment comes up, good times and tan lines. So we can pop that down for when it's in the envelope, pull it up for when it's out on display, and it displays lovely. Look at that. Doesn't that look fab? And we have our lovely stopper piece here as well. It really holds that nicely there, and building up with cardstock instead of foam tape, I think it actually I don't know, I really like this idea and I think it's something I'll do going forward. We have our two fish here and I thought it would be cute to use some of the little love hearts as if they're the little bubbles coming out of the fish's mouth. I'm going to finish this using an accent glaze. You can use a glossy accent or whatever you have in your stash. I'm going to put some on the heart so it looks like it's little bubbles, and I'm also going to put some just dotted around so it looks like bubbles as well. Now there's room up here. You can write a message and that way it's hidden then when the card is on display, which I like the idea of that. It keeps it very clean. So there is some bulk in this. You'll either have 2 layers of, you know, foam tape depending on the thickness of your foam tape. I have 4 layers, but here in Ireland to post something like this, it doesn't cost any extra. As long as it'll go through a post box, they don't charge extra for it. So I know it's a bit of bulk. You could actually do this style without the mechanism and you could just glue everything down and have it as a lovely little card. You could stamp your sentiment here, or there's room here. If you didn't want to do the pull mechanism, just stamp your sentiment here and that would look lovely with the girls stuck down in the same, you know, way that this is done. But I do like having this little mechanism, and although we had it pulling out on each side on card 1, we have it just being used in one place on card 2. So I'm really happy with that. I hope you've enjoyed this card. Let's move on now to card number 3. So for card 3, we're going to make a gatefold card, and we're going to use the new arched dies that are available on the website. So I wanted to make an arch shape card and I wanted it to be a gatefold. In this card, I'm going to again use the mechanism I've used in card 1 and 2, but this would be a beautiful card without the mechanism, without the bulk in it. You could just make a standard gatefold card. So our gatefold card is going to be this shape. And I'll give you the measurements if you're just making a standard gatefold card, and I'll show you how I'm going to do it here. But there are 2 extra score lines you'll need to add in if you're going to do the sliding mechanism. So I'm going to go through that with you now. So this is how our card base is going to be in essence. We'll die cut this out, we'll add a couple of score lines, and this then gives us our tabs on the side for our doors that you just saw. So you'll need to start off with a piece of cardstock that measures 8 by 5 3/8. Onto this, I'm going to put some score lines. Now my score lines are at, so if you're doing this without the dimension, just score at 2 and at 6, and that'll give you your gatefold, and then you can go ahead and do the rest of what I'm doing without the mechanism, etc. But if you're putting the mechanism in, you'll need to allow this little piece here. This is for our bulk for the foam that we'll use, so it just, rather than it trying to wrap around the bulk, it just sits nicer. So we're going to score this at 1 3/4 and at 2. And we're going to score it at 6 inches and at 6 1/4. Now what we're going to do is we're going to fold on the score lines, but only at 2 and 6. So I'm going to fold in on the second score line there from the left, and I'm going to score in again if you're on the right, not the first score line, but the second score line, and that gives us our gatefold. Now we want to take the largest arched die and we're going to sit that on there like so. Now if you look at this from the back, you'll see that our score lines there at the side, our card sits just nicely inside of the cut lines there. So that's what we want to do. and then you'll see that the card stock, it's just inside the cut lines at the top and the bottom. So we'll center that nicely in between those cut lines, and then we'll bring that over to our die cutting machine and cut it out. Now, I cut this out. It's 300 GSM card I'm using. I use my Big Shot, and it cut out this shape for me really, really well. I had no problem with that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that next. So I put that through my die cutting machine. I rolled it through and then back again. And you can see that little piece has fallen out. That little piece has fallen away. And there's a little bit there as well. So the dies are really good dies. I thought I'd need to use my chrome precision plate in order to get it through, or that I might have to use my scissors, but the dies are a really good die. They cut really, really well. So now this is what you should come back with when you've put it through your die cutting machine. And like I said, if you haven't put your extra score lines in for dimension, then this is what you have. You'll then put in your pattern papers and everything that I'll go through with you in a minute. And if you have put your score line in there, your second score line, you'll see it. Now I want to do some cutting because we want to cut the top of the doors there, and I just did it for aesthetic reasons. So what I'm going to do is I've put it back into my scoreboard. I have the flat edge against the left hand side, and I'm going to score at 3 inches straight across there, past the first score line and up to the second one. So that's the middle of our card. And then I'm going to flip it over and do the same thing again. I'm going to score it past the first score line and down to the second one. And I'm just going to take my scissors then and I'm going to cut that off. So the score lines here are just for reference for you, so that you can cut this part off. And I just found that by doing this, it made it neater when we add on our front panels. So I'll cut that through there, and I'm just following the arch around and cutting off the score line there. So you just want to make sure that's nice and tidy. Lovely. So we have our 2 little pieces that we have cut off our doors. Now the score line that we put in there, that extra score line, I'm going to burnish that now. And then I can burnish the other one there as well. And I'm just making sure it's nice and level with the bottom of the card base. So there are our extra little score lines and our extra little doors. Okay, so that is our card base there now ready to go. So I'm going to tidy up here and I'll go through all the rest that you will need, regardless of whether you're making the one with the mechanism or without. Okay, so we have our card base. Next, what you want to do is die cut out 2 white pieces. And again, I've used the largest die that is in the nesting arches set. I've die cut out 2 because one is going to go on the back, and it'll just tidy up our card from the back. It'll tidy up and it'll neaten up, and we'll have the full die cut out. And then the second one we're going to use for our doors. I've taken the second die down, this one here, and I've die cut out some pattern paper. This white with the blue stripe and this navy one with the red stripe and the waves and the lovely lighthouses. What I did was I took this piece and I put it onto my white one, and then I put it in my trimmer and I cut that right down the middle, so it'll give me 2 doors. This one then, what I did was I took some of my ink. I used my Distress Oxides in Antique Linen and Salty Ocean, the same as what I've done in my previous cards, I've used those colors, and I just ink blended along the bottom here and then ink blended some sand. Now what I did was I die cut out, this is the little die that we got, I die cut this out again in the wave pattern paper. I'm going to pop that across the bottom there, and I'll cut it to size when I'm done. So when I was blending my Salty Ocean Distress Oxide ink there, I knew I wanted to go up a little bit further than the height of this die. And then the sand one, the Antique Linen, I just took my little lash girl that I'm going to use, and I kind of had a look at where she would be positioned, and I could decide the height then of this band of ink. But you can do it to whatever height that you like, whichever you fancy. Now you'll see here as well I have an Aloha Sunshine. Now that is from the stamp set, this one here, Aloha Sunshine. Now I had gone ahead and put on some foam at the back. I prepped all my card, and when I got to the end I was like, oh darn it, I never put on the sentiment. So I did use my stamping positioner to stamp this on the pattern paper, but it didn't come out well because there's 4 layers of foam tape on this. So what I did was I took a really handy die that I have in my stash. This die set came from the Rainbow Wishes kit that was in January 2019, and it's the pot of gold, the coins, the cloud, and this is the little, you know, kind of accent piece. Lizzie has had this on the website. I'm not sure if it's there now, but I'll have a look. Links are down below in the description, but I've cut a couple extra of these clouds and I put a little bit of grey ink on them. Now I've used the Distress Oxide, and that's iced spruce, just to put a little bit of grey for our clouds. And I have these done, I did these previously, so I just popped out one of those and I stamped Aloha Sunshine on that and stuck that over where my inking didn't go well. So at this point you have your piece of pattern paper die cut out. If you want to stamp directly to the pattern paper, now is the time to do it, not after you add your foam tape like me. So I use the cloud to cover up, and I think it gives a nice accent, because at the end of the day we'll have our little waves here, we'll have our little lash girl there dipping her toes in the waves. She's seen the cloud and it's looking a bit grey, there could be some showers, so I've taken the umbrella from the ephemera and I have that popped down there so she can pop that open if it rains while she's dipping her toes. I've also taken this little lighthouse piece, I'm going to pop that there as well, and I've got some of the lovely shell gems, and I think I might pop one of those down there so it looks like there's a little shell on the beach. Now I've also got some other ephemera. We have some fish in our ephemera, and I think I'm going to take one of the blue and one of the red. I may take this third one and kind of chop it in half, and I'll tell you why. Because we have our Mechanism. Now this is the same Mechanism that we made in card 2. It's the exact same, so if you've watched card 2 you'll see how to do this. But this piece measures 2.5 by 1 3/4. I've scored it on all 4 sides at 1/4 inch, and then I've cut out these little pieces here. I've used the same amount of my plastic wrap, and that piece was about 4.5 inches long by 1 1/8, and I wrapped it around and stuck that down. My acetate, these pieces measure 3 inches by 1 1/8, and you can cut these down to size as well, but I'm nearly sure that 3 inches is my finished length. Yeah, 3 inches is my finished length. And then I've just taken little strips of white cardstock, they're 1/4 inch wide, and I've stuck them on to the front and back, and I've just written pull on those. So when they slide out, our little fish, which will be on here, will be sitting behind this panel, and when we pull it out, our fish then will pop out, and we'll see it like that. Our fish will come out either side. So I think that will be really, really fun. Okay, so now I think that's everything. The only other thing is I've taken one of the lengths of ribbon. This is the navy one. I'm going to wrap this around my card and use it to tie it so it'll keep my gatefold closed rather than use a belly band. You could use a belly band if you like, but I'm going to use the ribbon that came in the kit, and I'm going to attach that to the back of my card base before I add my white panel on, and that'll secure it then there. So you'll only see the ribbon at the front, it won't be around the back. And I like that idea. I do like a belly band, but I kind of feel a belly band is just left on the shelf. Do you know, whereas the ribbon, you can untie it and they just hang there and it's ready to go. So also, I want to mention the panel that goes in the back. If you want to stamp a sentiment or anything on that, now is the time to do that before you stick that down as well. So stamp your message on your panel that's going to be inside and on your panel that's going to be on the outside. So that's everything we're going to need. I probably will embellish it once I'm done with some of our blueberry blue hearts that we got in the kit. I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to speed everything up, do some assembly, and I'll talk to you through that or have music in the background. So let's go ahead and assemble card number 3. So I've flipped my panel over now and it's the back side you can see, and I'm looking at my mechanism and deciding where I want to put it. Once I'm happy, I'll take off the release paper on the back, stick that down, and then I'm ready to flip my panel over. I've decided as well that the pull on the left hand side, I don't need that there, so I'm going to cut that off. Now I can flip my whole panel over, take off the release paper on all the foam tapes, and then sit that down into place on the card. I use a little liquid adhesive that just allows me a bit of wiggle room when I'm positioning this panel down onto the card base. So I don't like how the inside of my doors look because of those tabs that we have. So I've die cut out another of the large arches. I'm going to cut it in half and stick it to the inside panel of the doors so it gives a cleaner look. I'm using my collal glue to stick these down. I'm going to make sure that they're nice and lined up. Any excess to where they have been cut down the middle, I can cut that off. And there we are. There's our to the beach scene. We've got our Aloha Sunshine, our lovely Lash Girl, and all our ephemera. I think you'd agree this is a really cool card. I've used some glossy accents on the bow, underneath the cloud in little tiny drops, so it looks like raindrops. She's in a sun shower. And we have our lighthouse, and I've put some accent glades on the windows, on the glass there. So our card really does move beautifully with this little mechanism, which is so easy and so fun and can be used in so many different ways. We have our little shoal of fish swimming by there, and you could even add a sentiment onto maybe this side, so when it pulls out, it could be Aloha Sunshine, miss you, or anything like that. But I hope my 3 cards have inspired you with this really cool mechanism that you don't need any dies for, and that you can add to a card and it just lifts your card up with a really cool mechanism. So that's it. I'm going to leave it there, folks. I hope you've enjoyed my card. If you have, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe and ding the bell so you won't miss any more videos on this channel. I've left links down below to the website as well as to my channel, Blonde Cards and Crafts. I'll be sharing some cards over on my channel as well using this kit. So until next time, I'm going to leave it there, folks. Thanks for joining me, and bye for now.